Alright, today I would like to talk about the unsung hero of the law enforcement and security world, and that is the pad of paper and the pen. And while it's easy to say you have something to take notes with and keep it with you and take good notes, very few people are actually getting training on how to take good notes. Alright man, take a seat, buckle up. Ordinarily we'd start with orientation of the car here, but we got calls pending and we got to get to them. So we're rolling. We're going to have to learn on the way. Right, so I'm going to show you one method. It's not necessarily the only method, and I encourage anybody that has to take notes for their living to create their own system for taking good, quality, accurate notes that they can use later. This is just an example of what works for me working at my agency and what I've used for a long time. So when you take notes, what you want to do is first pre-prep for the notes. So let's say you're going to a call and you know there's a good chance that you're going to have to write a report from it. What you want to do is before you even get out of the car, if you have a computer in the car and it has some sort of mobile dispatching system like they do where I'm working, you get your incident number and the time of the call off of it, because you're probably going to need that to look up the call later and then to write your report. So as an example, you got an incident number and the time. I always tend to write it at the top. So that way when I'm looking back through my notes, let's say if I'm flipping through the book trying to find an incident from 4 days ago, I can look it up by incident number, or I can look it up by the time that the incident happened. If I say, oh, I know it happened at like 9 o'clock in the morning, I can flip through without having to remember anybody's name. So I'll just make it up. Let's say it's, the incident number is the year and 00001. That's my incident number for it. And let's say it happened at 11:15. I do it in military time, so I can't mess up AM and PM or forget to put AM or PM next to it. So I put 23:15. Now with notes, it doesn't have to necessarily, especially at a patrol level, be something that anybody could look at and get what you're saying, unless you're going to have to pass them off to somebody else. And if you're working at an agency with somebody, they're probably going to know what that is when they see it at the top of the notes. They're going to say, oh, I see what he's doing. The idea is, if you do it consistently, you're going to be able to know what you're talking about each time you look back at your notes, even if they're from several years ago. So I start off at the top with the incident number and the time, and then it kind of varies for me whether I'm going to start off writing notes about what happened or the people. Normally what I'll do is when I do a field interview, I'll talk to the person and see basically what happened during the incident, and then if I think I'm going to have to write a report, I will start off by getting their information. So let's say the person's name is John Doe and he has a birthday of 1/12/86. What I normally do is I'll ask him for their ID, because that helps me later on with not spelling things wrong, and it makes it a lot easier. I might put the ID up against the bottom of the sheet of paper, and I'll write their information on it. So I'll write Doe, John, 1/12/86. So later on when I'm looking them up in the computer, I'm not having to look through and figure out which name is which. Doe, John. We're normally looking people up by last name in most computer systems. Now, if there's no middle initial, I like to actually write NMI. That's shorthand to me that person doesn't have a middle initial. And later on, I'm not questioning myself whether they have it or not. I see that, I know they didn't have one. And I put the address, 123 Fake Street, Berwyn, Illinois 66666. Now I've got their name, their date of birth, their address down, then I want to get a phone number. Let's say it's 312-689-2743. So now I have everything I might need to do my report. If I don't have their ID in front of me, then that's everything I need for their information in order to do my report generally. If I have their ID in front of me, I use this line that I normally leave blank to put their driver's license number in. So let's say their driver's license is D1864383 So now if there's something in that line, I know they had their driver's license or ID with them, and that on the scene I didn't just take their word for it. I actually confirmed with a piece of ID, and that's where I got that number from, all of the information that I got about them. So if I had an ID with me, I would then use it to strike a line, and then on the bottom I would write whatever their version of the story was. So again, I'm leaving a blank here. If the person's not on scene, I won't put anything in there. If the person is on scene and I can capture their demographics, I'll capture their demographics. Let's see, this is a male, white, 5'10", 250 pounds. So when I go back to put my description of the person into the computer system, I have sex, race, height, and weight. If they have some other distinguishing feature about them, I can put that on there too. Let's say this male white that's 5'10" and 250 pounds also had dreadlocks, or whatever else the computer system might want. I'm probably going to know in advance what that's going to be. The computer system has hair color or something else that I need. I can add that into that line as well. Then on the bottom, under the line, I'll write what their complaint was, or whatever they told me about the incident. So let's say mailbox hit by unknown object, broken at base. So now I've got all their information, the information I'm going to need to look up the incident on the computer and what their complaint was, basically. Then I'll draw another line and I'll put what I observed. For this instance, let's say I go there, he says the mailbox was hit by an unknown object and broken at the base. I'll put same with an arrow pointing up, so I know that I observed the mailbox broken at the base. If there was something different, I would write what I observed that was different than that. And then along with that, I'd write, let's say, red paint transfer. If I went there and the mailbox of John Doe was broken off at the base in front of his house at 123 Frake Street in Berwyn, Illinois, and I observed that the mailbox was broken off at the base and there was red paint transfer on the mailbox, then that's everything I'm going to need to go back and write my report. The only other thing you could add in here, if it's not initially at the time of the call, I would add another line at the bottom for the time span. So let's say John Doe said that sometime between 1 May of 15 and 8 May of 15 this happened. That's what I put down. If he had a time, I would just write the time under it. That's it. Now if there's other witnesses, I'll flip the page, and on the other side I'll write that other witness's information and then a line and then what they say. After I've done all of that, and before I head out to go do my report or put it away to go do it later, or write it in the car or write it on paper or whatever I'm going to do, I'll start assigning what I'm going to title each person. So if John Doe 11286, let's say he is the owner of the house and that's his mailbox, I'll write Vic next to John Doe and I'll circle it so that way I remember John Doe is the victim here. If he was the complainant, let's say he's a renter, we don't have the landlord's information while we're on scene, but John Doe here is the renter and he observed that the mailbox was broken and the landlord said, hey, go get me a report. I'll put complainant and then I'll circle it. And that's pretty much it. That's how you take notes. And if you use the same system, whether it's this one or another one, every time you take notes, then it's going to be easier later on when you have to look back through your notes to figure out what's going on. And it makes it a lot easier for you writing a report. You know, 3 weeks later, if John Doe is actually the person that was there, if it was just somebody that said that they were them, you have your incident number, the time you were out there, and the address and their phone number to be able to go look people up, everything you might need. That's taking notes easy. There's lots of little things you can do. There's lots of extra space written on here. If something comes up during an incident, I can add stuff into the margins. That's why I leave a little margin there. You could leave extra space in between, so that way when something comes up that's unusual, you can write the unusual things in there. I've seen this done lots of different ways. I've seen people that just take down people's names on little incident cards, and then as soon as they're done with the report, they throw the incident cards away. I caution everybody against doing that because I can't count the number of times that I've had to go back and change a report later because the boss asked a question and I have to go back and look at my notes. I also can't count the number of times that I have had to go back and redo a report because the computer system didn't take it and it deleted it on its own. And anybody that's been in any industry long enough will tell you that every once in a while the computers go bad. Hopefully this helps you out. Well, now if you like that video, go ahead and subscribe because there's a whole lot more to come. As soon as I finish up these calls, go 10-8. County 291.
291.